Continuing along with our theme of New Year, New You, purging, joy, Mary Kendo, and all that fun new feng shui stuff. It's the Integrateness podcast with Jason and Jolene. Guess which one I am?
Solid entrance there.
Thank you. And I don't plan these. As soon as like the record button hits, I just kind of rattle off what's ever passing through my head at that time.
It's good. I like it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we kind of teased last week's this week's last week, and it was an impromptu decision. Because Jolene was talking about something that was actually, we're just going to fit it in at the end of the episode about people in your life, etc. And then it was like, no, that's a whole episode right there, because people make up the bulk, I think, of your time and your emotional and sometimes even physical space, right? And so, and when we're kids, we're all about friends and socializing and learning how to meet people and learning how to navigate socially and which people are jerks and which people aren't times. And the younger you are, the more important a bigger group of social group is. And then as you get older, at least I've found, that giant circle whittles down to a core group of people that you feel are kind of like-minded enough, or not, but they're worth your time. They bring value and joy to your life. And so we're going to talk about how that works and how maybe if you're struggling with your social circle, how maybe we can kind of help you navigate that a bit, which might be a lofty goal off the top of the half hour here to bring up.
Yeah. Okay.
Jolene's looks very thoughtful.
I am. Look at that. I'm like, wheels are turning, guys. Okay, grab a pen and paper. Stop. Pause. You don't even have to pause. We'll give you the pause. Grab a pen and paper. I want you guys jotting things down as we talk. Okay. So you got your paper, pencil. Are you guys pens or pencil people? I'm such a pen person. The pencil.
I'm a pen person myself too. I used to be pencil, but I like the pen. Black ink pen.
I'm pretty particular about my stationery. I like a nice, solid ballpoint. I don't like a thin one. I like to have stacked paper underneath, not just one. I don't like it too hard, like a little saw.
Yeah. That's got to be thicker the better, right?
Yeah. Okay. Got your pen and paper. Okay. Or pencil if you're a weirdo. So I want you to make two columns down the page. Okay. I want you to see, we're going to inventory relationships in our lives, and relationships meaning people we interact with. Okay. Which ones do we have choice over and which ones do we not necessarily have choice over? Okay. And I get that, yes, we have choice throughout most aspects of our lives, but some we may not. Okay. And especially children, like when you say as children, we're this, that, so many of our interactions are dependent on who our parents want us to hang out with, who they're hanging out with, all these kinds of things, right?
Where you live even.
Yeah, totally. Go back to our school episode and think about that, right? Like what you and I kind of went through socially with friends and things like that. So which ones do you have choice over and which ones do you not? So some examples of ones you have choice over are people you're choosing to be friends with, okay? People you are choosing to maybe have romantic relationships with. Okay. And those of you who are in partnerships and you're like, well, I don't know, did I choose my partner? You're like, fuck yeah, you did. And you might feel stuck, but it was a choice.
You made it.
And if it doesn't feel like a choice, now put them in the I don't feel like I have a choice column, because that's going to highlight some things too, because this is about making intentional shifts in your life that are going to open a bit of that freeway for you to be cruising down the highway of greatness here. So essentially look at the ones we don't really have a lot of control over. So sometimes that might be work colleagues, right? It might be family members, right? So some of them, yes, we have choice, and sometimes we don't have choice, right? Because the biggest thing about why it's important of whether we have choice or not, that's gonna depend on how much resentment you hold from how much you need to invest in that relationship and things like that. Typically, we'll have higher resentment for the relationships that we feel forced to maintain or have to maintain out of choice, right? Workplace ones are huge here, right? Sometimes we have to work with these people, whether we like it or not. And it's about what we do to navigate that. Okay. So I want you just to jot down some of your big key ones. Okay. And I want you to look at some of the social and like acquaintance interactions that you have, and which ones, you might even put them in the middle, like kind of straddling both columns, because maybe they were choices at one point and they feel more like obligations now. Lots of our long-term friendships or friendships that we had for really intense periods of time that maybe have now changed in their frequency, in their consistency, or like depth, right? So I've had really close connections with people for periods of time and stages in my life, and then they separate again, because we kind of, if you guys could see my hands, I'm going like in and out with my hands, my two hands, because we come together with people for shared experiences and when we're in similar places in our lives, and then sometimes we grow apart and we just kind of journey differently. That doesn't always mean that something has happened to create that change and divide, but it's what we do with that. So I can think of some of my friendships that I like put down and pick up depending on those ebbs and flows, and we are just like, we never skip a beat, and it's fucking amazing. I love it. And then I see friendships that have done that, come together, go apart, but they don't feel that same way. There's this obligation of like, is there this underlying, did something go wrong? What does that person think? That person's extra sensitive or whatever that be. And it's not this underlying sense of secure connection. There is something there that feels, again, forced or out of alignment, out of flow. And it's like, we don't want to stop it and say something went wrong, because nothing really went wrong, but nobody's investing in it anymore. And it's just kind of sitting there as this like unfinished thing, which is also okay. But sometimes you just need to mentally seal that up, right? If you leave it open, it's like always kind of lingering and festering and kind of calling your name a little bit. Or like, maybe you'll send a text once every 3 months and like pretend everything's all good, right? And it's not that things have gone bad. It's just recognize you're just in different activities, different lands of your life right now, right? But it doesn't always mean both parties feel that way, right?
You know, it's funny because I've had a lot of friendships. Most of the people that I hang out with now are people that I pretty much grew up with, right? And there's one friend in particular who we were really tight for a long time, and then we kind of went apart. Like you're saying, things just happened, and then we didn't see much of each other. Then it kind of comes back. And there's a period even like, about 7 years ago, where we didn't associate much, like once in a while, and it felt like work and all that kind of stuff. But in the last 2 years, it's been almost back to like when we were kids again, in terms of that frequency of hanging out, that closeness, that ties. So there is an ebb and flow to things. And sometimes just because you're not vibing with someone, this is what my mom said, even about my dad. Like they were married 33 years. And sometimes over that time, things were great. And other times they weren't. And as long as you were willing just to ride out the times that weren't so great, you get back to the times that were great. You got to give it. If you're invested, that's what you do. So I think every relationship kind of works that same way. But there are people sometimes where I think you realize why you question, why have I been friends with this person, or why have I been associating with this person for 30 years and I don't really have anything in common. I don't like them. And every time we get together, it's a fight, or we're just so on different wavelengths. I think that's where you really got to pause and kind of think about why.
Yeah. And people feel that resistance prior to coming together because they know it's not the same anymore. They know that they're not feeling it, and it becomes an obligation. It becomes an obligation that then kind of turns to like this bumbling resentment, right? And sometimes wouldn't it be beautiful if we could have that mature conversation of like, hey, I noticed things have changed here, and I don't think that anything wrong happened, but like, you know what? Let's just kind of leave things the way they are so that they don't feel unfinished. But we both know, like, for right now, let's just put it down. Let's put it down and be cool with that. It's when it's not put down, or there's no mutual understanding, or there's this like assumed did something go wrong because we're not speaking as frequently. Or sometimes what happens is one of the people might like turn and start focusing their time on others, right? And the situations I'm thinking about here, and I support a lot of my clients through this. I've experienced this in my life as well, because I have people very like people like to come into my life. They enjoy my company sometimes, and I get all excited about that too as well. But like I know in my younger years I would have I'd build like really strong connections with people. And sometimes, we can build really codependent friendships. So you as well, Jason, we had to learn to become friends with various different people because, we were bullied or shifted classrooms or schools and things like that. Right. So for me, I learn how to connect with people. I connect with people well, and they can often feel, that solid friendship. I'm getting distracted because one of my young children has walked into the room here. So, but the other thing is that some people, and I support a lot of clients through this, where they actually have super codependent bestie relationships that then really kind of come to a head when one of the individuals has gotten a partner, like a romantic partner, and that bestie feels like they are pushed out. And it's really interesting to see how much attachment is in that connection, how much possessiveness. Usually there's a big power imbalance in terms of who is dominating that friendship as well, right? And I know I've been on both ends of this in a friendship, right? I've been that person, but I've also had that happen to me too, right? And again, this is just part of us learning to navigate connections and friendships and relationship with people. And it's no different, you know, friendship attachments are no different than romantic attachments, because we're letting people into our lives in a really intimate way. We are being vulnerable and very authentic, ideally, hopefully, with others, but we're scared they're going to reject us. We're scared they're going to abandon us. So we might be people pleasing. We might be going above and beyond. You know, I referenced before, I was like, I would pay for my friends' booze and drive them around just so I had people to hang out with in high school sometimes. I was like, come on, let's go. It'll be fun, right? Like,
And I've been there too, many, many, many times. I think it's important to realize, and it's hard to do. It's like what we've said in one episode. I might have thrown it out there. The most important word to learn in the English language is no.
yeah,
Right. And I think because I've been that person that's been the one supporting other friends in terms of financial ventures or going places or weekend camping trips and ending up paying for all of it. And I kind of realized a pattern with one friend is that we'd plan this trip, and every time at the last minute, the night before, or even the day of, that person would suddenly not have the money to pay for their share of the trip. And it's like, go alone or cover for them. And it's almost like this friend decided I can get away with this all the time. And it was something I realized kind of far too late in the friendship. And it did build up its own sense of resentments later on. And once I stopped doing that, it created sometimes even more problems.
yeah. And it's also the intention behind it too, right? Like sometimes, you know, I've supported people who were like, oh, this friend will like do this stuff. But then later they're like, well, I did this for you. And right. It's like buying people's love and things like that. Right. But then there's also friendships that like truly thrive with that kind of generosity and that reciprocity. And it's like, you know what? Your pocket's empty right now, but mine's not. Let's do this together. And that was always kind of a little bit of like the vibe that I had, because it was like, we could all be enjoying ourselves right now, right? Like there's no reason why we can't, kind of thing, right? And like things are funner with you, so how do we make it, you know, how can you join along, right? And it's around like the participation of the other person and how they're doing that. And again, this happens in like various different ways. Like ask yourself, where do I extend myself? You know, where is it that like people are drawn to me? What is it that they you know, enjoy about me? You know, something I noticed when I had my twins was that a lot of the friendships I just couldn't maintain the same way anymore, because I was so maxed out, just time and responsibility wise and stuff, that I was like, whoa, like things dwindled really fast in some areas because I was not able to input, which also was really refreshing for me. And I think many people through COVID, we saw where efforts were being placed and how mutual maybe a connection was, and where it wasn't mutual, it gave people some space and distance to decide if they wanted to reinvest in that.
It was amazing. That's COVID made a huge difference in terms of, for me, realizing who was important and who wasn't. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one friendship that ended at the tail end of it, partly because of this person's reaction to COVID and how they treated it. And they thought it was bullshit. And mutual friend of ours, mom had died from COVID. And he's making comments online about, oh, Bonnie Henry this, and she's got to release these restrictions because I want to go on my camping trip this summer and blah, blah, blah. And at that point, you kind of just go like, well, you know what? That's not the mindset of someone that cares, especially when our mutual friend's mom died from COVID. Right.
Yeah.
Like you learn pretty hard. So that ended. And it was one of the easiest decisions to make in my entire life, even though I'd known the person 20 years.
Yeah. So
Easy.
that's actually a really great point too, is like when we look at how we're kind of like inventorying, again, look at these two columns, right? Start circling some, like which ones, maybe get a color highlighter, which ones are like definite go-tos, like these are solid people in my life, these are my maybes, and then these are my like, I need to make some decisions about them. Okay. So maybe color code them or circle them or put shapes around them or something, because I really want you to start looking at this as almost like just a bit of an equation, a bit of a do these pants fit me anymore kind of thing, right? Because again, who we surround ourselves with, I think it's like they say the 10 people you surround yourself with the most is kind of who you are, right? And so I remember seeing this grid, and it was like, do you want to be the best out of these 10 people? So it was like, this person's the tallest and these other 10 are below them. Or do you want to be that height around like 9 other people that are like way, way taller? In other words, like more advanced in their lives, right? So like always set yourself up to be with people who are beyond you. So you're learning from somebody, because if you're the teacher and the mentor in your group, you're not going to grow the same way, right? So that's why we're inventory. That's why we're looking at like, how many people do I inspire and mentor, which I think is a beautiful thing, right? To kind of be of service and to be able to have that. But like, how many people are that for me? Who am I below? Who am I striving to kind of be like? Who am I learning from? Who expands me? Who grows me? Who can pull me in a certain direction as well, momentum wise, right? So we want to inventory some of those things. We also want to look at who is socially draining us, energetically draining us, social media wise, right? So are there people that like to just follow your life because they like to know what the fuck's going on, right? And how many people do you really need knowing all these details about you, right? We might decide to filter some of your stuff, like filter your profile so that only a certain amount of people get this information, and then the general public maybe gets this, or set your privacy settings so not just anybody can just go creep in your front window, which is essentially what like creeping your social media profile is. You might decide to thin that. Just last night, actually, it was funny. I liked some high school friends a photo, and then all of a sudden I got a friend request from the one girl, and I was like, well, that's weird. Like we've been friends for years, right? And then I was like, oh shit, I wonder if she thought I deleted her or something. That's weird. And I just kind of sat on that for a bit, and I was like, maybe Facebook's like screwing around, because I hate that when that happens. And I'm like, I hope that person didn't think I deleted them, right? Because I have had some like disappear. Well, now maybe I realize they've deleted me, right? So anyway, like, literally 5 minutes later, the girl messages, she's like, I'm so sorry I removed you from my friends list. I went through a ton of shit like last 6 months, and it was really intense, and I deleted a ton of people off my list, but things are all good now. And I was like, you don't need to apologize for that at all. I said, I actually didn't know we weren't friends till you added me again. Like I didn't even notice, but I'm glad things are going well. And I was also like, kudos to you for thinning out your life at that time when you needed it. And I think that's beautiful, right? Like I didn't take it personally that we weren't friends. I had the opposite response. I was like, I hope she didn't think I deleted her, But
I did that myself after the job switch. I needed to take a month where I'm not even posting anything or being online much, just to get away, because the previous work was so social media heavy, online heavy, YouTube heavy. You need a break because it just bleeds you dry.
totally. And the other thing I want to talk about is, as we talk about thinning people from our lives, people will feel when we energetically disconnect from them. They feel when we turn away from the connection, right? We can feel this romantically. We can feel this in friendships when people just aren't engaged the same way anymore. And sometimes it's okay. Like, I think it's great just to check in, right? And just to be like, yeah, you know what? I'm just kind of taking some time to myself, especially if I have some friends that I know are a little bit more just like anxiously attached in a sense. I will just let them know, like, shit's just real quiet for me right now. Like, I'm not really responding to anybody. I love you big. And like, I'll reach out when I can here, right? So I have a couple friends that I'll do that with. And then other ones, some kind of don't notice at all. But as we're talking about thinning people from our lives, I want to move my computer down because I have this furry dog that has now come into my office. I have a child lying on the floor right now.
You're going to have your entire family in there with you very soon, Jolene.
Right? Yeah. Don't. And my son's still upstairs, but they're like, don't forget about me. Don't cut me out. I am not on the list. What list am I on? Right. They're all like, what's happening? She's thinning people from her life. And I shit you not. This is even my dog's like trying to shake a paw. This is what will happen. Right. And people might sneak back in. And sometimes we get these little tests in our life around like, oh, hey, knock, knock, or someone starts liking your stuff again. Like this happens a lot romantically, right? People will be like, you were right. My ex messaged me, or like, I got that text message I said, and you didn't respond to that shit, did you?
Tell me you did not.
Or whatever, right? But yeah, recognize like these are all things, because when we're engaged with connections with people, there's so many shared experiences, there's memories. And again, when it's hard for us to let go of things like clearing out your house last week, imagine how hard it is to let go of memories and connections and the what ifs. We often grieve the what ifs, like what we thought things would be or who we thought somebody was, because we often fall in love or befriend potential. We really see the best in other people and we see who we want to see, right? And sometimes in some friendships, people get blindsided quite a bit by that, right? Or like even collegial friendships. Like I had so many lovely colleague friendships that the friendship didn't end, but because the frequency changed when I left that government job, I just didn't see people as much. These were people I saw every single day. I didn't even see my own friends every single day or week or month, right? So the frequency of people created that friendship essentially, right?
Oh, for sure. I
And
had that at work BC, actually. And one of them is still one of my really best friends, but so many of them just disappeared once I left that field, right? And somebody, it was such a transient job for people anyways, as it was like a stepping stone to other social worky jobs, basically.
totally. So those are friendships that maybe aren't your choice initially, but then become your choice because of frequency, because of you being there and you have a shared interest in this and that. But do you choose to maintain them once you're done the job? And sometimes that's what we do with some of those ones that aren't necessarily choice. Neighbors might be the same thing. When we live in the same neighborhood, we might associate because of location and convenience of that connection, right? And then when the neighbors move, there's like, it's hard. I mean, this happened with my neighbors a couple of years ago, and they're on the island now. And, you know, we would FaceTime initially, but it wasn't the same as just like popping your head over the fence, which I could easily do when my kids were out playing. I didn't have to chisel aside extra time for it, right? But now that they're like over on Vancouver Island, I'm like, I don't even know when I'm going to see you again. It's been a couple of years, right? And we keep in touch at a distance. And the quality of that friendship, like I still value them the exact same way, but we don't have as much quantity and frequency, you know, as we did when they were right next door, right?
But I think that speaks to how good of a bond was built, that you're still there's even an effort still being made, right? Because how many people might you've lived next door with and you talk to them and then they move away and it's like, well, fuck, I don't care. you
Right.
know?
Social media has made that really easy, right?
Yeah.
Really easy. You guys can hear my dog growling in the back. That's what
Yes.
that is. Sorry. She often has a lot to say to me, and I'm just gonna go try and close her outside the door here. Carry on,
Not a
Jason.
problem. So I think we've covered off a pretty good amount of stuff when it comes to dealing with people and Jolene's dog. Um, so
Oh,
please
this
look at
is
your list. Look at your list that we told you to put together. And even message us your thoughts on some of what you've come up with in your list. Does it make sense to you? Does any of this even help when it determines how you want to spend time with people, which people you want to spend time with, or even when keeping an eye open for new people that you're meeting? Will this help change your perspective on the people you meet going forward? So let us know that in our socials on our Instagram.
totally some things I did through, you know, aligning with my intentions over the last couple of years is I rebuilt friendships with old people I hadn't seen in a long time that I was like, oh, we knew to collide 20 years prior because look at where we are now. But a lot of online connections actually, just because they were kind of all over the world, but they were entrepreneurs like me. They were invested in the same kind of work as me. They were kind of vibing at the same level I was, right? So it was really beautiful to create new connections like that may never be physical friendships, but man, what we offer each other in like by distance and support and encouragement and inspiration that way has been like invaluable, more than some of my physical relationships offered me during that time of my life, right? Because it is about who is aligned with you. Like I have really good like best friends, but they are not navigating some of the same planes in life that I am, and therefore we don't have as much benefit that way to each other. We have benefits in other ways to each other, right? So
Yeah.
what do you need the connection for? Where do you thrive? What does it offer you? What do you offer it, right? Because I've got the friend that I can cry with, and then I've got a different friend that I like to just go have fun with. And then I have another friend that we send memes with each other. And that's our way of connecting. We have all different friendships, right? So again, they all serve a different purpose. And some are for a reason, and some are for a season, and some are for a lifetime, right?
Oh yeah, no, I had a friend that I met when I was on a trip to the UK back in 1995, and that's something that she sort of said. Like you meet some people and they stick around for a minute, for an hour, for a week, month, year, the rest of your life, but each one of them comes into your life for a purpose.
Absolutely. We all do. It's really beautiful, actually. Even
So
the
I,
asshole.
pardon me?
Even the assholes, right?
Oh yeah, well, you learn something from them too, if not about people, about how to deal with assholes or about yourself.
I
Right?
learn this one sometimes for sure.
All right. Well, that wraps up this episode because Jolene's world is being taken over by her children.
It was funny when I said even assholes, my daughter is actually throwing a giant yoga ball at me as we speak.
Take from that what you will, audience. We'll be back next week with more Into Greatness. Until then, I'm Jason.
I'm Jolene.
Talk soon.